Black pain, now we free from them chains. Heavy hearts, but we moving through the rain. Three black brothers with the weight on their minds. Till we rise, till we shine, still we grind. From the darkness to the light we claim. Still humble in the struggle, still proud of our name.
All right, welcome to season 2, episode 17. I have a very special guest with us today, Shannon. He is a ADHD coach, and he is going to be talking about some of the effects or causes of ADHD, and we'll get into some helpful tips for Black men that maybe might be battling with that. So go ahead and introduce us, Shannon, where you're from and what you do, and then we can get into this conversation. Thank you again for coming on here, brother.
All right. First of all, thank you, Daron. Thanks for having me. My name is Shannon Williams. I am the OCPD coach, and my goal is to help you build a healthy relationship with progress. Now, I am somebody who has a combination of ADHD, OCD, and something known as OCPD. The big thing that I like to help people with is finding out how to make progress in their lives while also finding time for family, personal hobbies, all those other things, because a lot of people just work, and they never find that time to take their head up and get some fresh air. I'm born and raised in Detroit, so I'm from Detroit, but now I live in Florida, and I do all of my stuff online remotely. So I'm always, for the most part, you can find my YouTube channel, the OCPD Coach. That's where I go and do weekly live streams. I'm a certified product owner, so I show you all how these big companies use strategies to get things done in a healthy way. And I've taken those strategies into my personal life, and that's how I help people. And then also you see at DIY Interactive, I'm a video game developer on the side. So on that channel, I just do my video game development and talk about all the games I'm working on. So yeah, thanks for having me again. And I hope we can drop some gems, as they say, and give you all something to really feel good about or hopeful about after you leave this podcast.
Yeah, so I want to kind of take us back to like maybe young Shannon. Like, how did you? What symptoms did you develop when you had ADHD? What? Because it's very different among young men. Like some people can be really hyper. Maybe some people might be reserved or a little bit quiet. Like, but they act a little. They might act a little funny. But what kind of symptoms did you develop when you had it, or if you care to share part?
I was always on the hyper side. So now that you say this, I like to make terms up. I would say I was a hyper creative. I was always bouncing. I had a bunch of brothers, so we were into pro wrestling, and pro wrestling attracted me because of the flashing lights, the music, the action, all of that stuff. So my brothers and I would always try to replicate what we saw. So every single weekend, I would go and have wrestling matches with my brothers all the time, and I was a creative. So ever since I can remember, I know as young as first grade, I've been an artist. So I've always drawn pictures. I've always loved drawing. I can't paint, but I love drawing. And I used to draw trucks all the time. So my nickname was Truck Cat because I loved big semi trucks and I would draw. And with my ADHD, that was my release. So I think with ADHD, something that helps is if you have a creative outlet where you can channel all of that focus into something and be productive. With my OCPD, apparently I had this when I was young as well. It is this extreme level of detail. So my detail, I was really, really good at finding the small details, but you get so caught up in the small details, you lose the plot of the overall goal. So those two things, I saw that really young. I was always trying to create stuff. I remember not fourth grade. I was still in first grade, but Toy Story came out and I went to see Toy Story on Ice. And skating was big in the 90s still. We were still going to the roller skating rinks. They used to have the disco lights at the roller skating rinks, and I wanted to have one in my room. So I took the light up. It was a light up Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story on Ice thing that spun around. I took that and I wanted to hang it to my ceiling light, first grade, mind you. And I took a robe, you have your robe belt, and I tried to tie the robe belt because I said I need to keep it spinning somehow. I need to keep it triggered. And I remember tying this up and trying to put it on my ceiling fan. I got in trouble for it. But it was just, I can remember stuff as young as first grade, me trying to be creative and come up with solutions back then. So yeah, it was that. And I mean, we can get more in detail because it impacted me in different ways as I got older. So high school, it was I had a hard time focusing in class. I never could focus in class, but I understood as soon as I put my hands on something. So the teacher could say, "Hey, I'm going to spend an hour teaching." I couldn't really focus on that. I would pay attention to weird things like the teacher's hairstyle would be in my head, or the outfit that they're wearing, or something out the window. But as soon as they said, "Hey, here's the assignment," I could just whiz right through it. I didn't have a problem with it. And I also think I have what I say photographic memory in a way because I can see something and then replay stuff in my head exactly how I saw it.
Yeah,
So
and that's a very different perspective that I like that you, because I never met someone that had ADHD, because usually they consider the class clown or they not really focused, but you was really smart in your game, right? So, but you just still wanted to do what you wanted to do at that time. So
yeah,
that's a very nuanced conversation that I think needs to be had, because a lot of times I used to have a friend and he was an ADHD and he would just couldn't sit still for nothing. Like he would just be bouncing. He had to make jokes in class. He had to just he got on the teacher's nerves so bad. And I can tell she was about to break at any moment because he just kept interrupting her and every little thing and every little laugh. And sometimes she would even laugh too because some of the things he would do was funny. It
uh-huh,
was because the history class, I'm not gonna lie, the history class that I was, it was really boring. I was more of a math and science person, so I couldn't get with that
yeah,
history. When they started talking about
ah,
1900s, I zone out. So
no, the exact same way.
you know, I appreciate him for kind of doing that, but it's like, you know, it can be a really serious challenge of ADHD, because sometimes if it's not managed correctly, it can get you some serious trouble. So what are some of the ways that you kind of manage ADHD? Because I know that you still got your work done and stuff like that, but what were some of the ways that it was
Yeah.
debilitating for you?
So for me, it was that outlet. Yeah,
Mhm,
you have to have something to do. You have to have something to do with all of the energy. I think
mhm,
even when I used to when I was learning about it, it was really that difficulty regulating your attention. So if you have something that you really love, for me, it was creating things. I used to in the wrestling games, I would always create the wrestlers from my childhood and different things like that. I always had an outlet where it actually required it allowed me to practice my skills, focusing on things that I like to do. So I have the ability to focus better because I knew how to do it. I've seen myself do it for things I love to do. Now, it started becoming an issue in probably third and fourth grade where I needed glasses. I didn't know I needed glasses. And because I couldn't see anything, I really was just all over the place. I didn't have anything else to do but cause chaos. I think what really helped me around that time was the positive. Well, first of all, we come from the whooping era. I used to get, whoopings if I needed it, not often, but if I needed it. So that was one thing. But then the second thing was I realized that if I do good things, I get good results. So I started getting good grades, and then I got more time to play video games or whatever it was that I wanted to do. I come from a really structured house, so I wasn't allowed to play video games throughout the week at all. My entire time that I from when I was a kid, growing all the way up to high school, I wasn't allowed to play video games except for Saturdays and Friday nights, Saturdays, and then Sundays. So outside of that, I was always in these reading programs. I know my mom always was really focused on my interests, and she paid attention to things I like to do. We had something called DAPSEP in Detroit. It's Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program, and it was a STEM program for kids. And we start young. We started, I think, as little as third or fourth grade, and you went all the way up to eighth grade. So I was able to do summer programs where I learned about Blender or 3D modeling. I was able to do advanced math stuff. So I realized that when I'm ahead I would actually be ahead of the class a lot of times, which would make it where now I'm bored in class and I just start drawing. So you have to have some outlet. For me, drawing was it. I know there might be somebody. Oh, one more thing. We could talk about this all day because I love these conversations. But self stimulating was a thing I used to do and didn't realize what I was doing. Yeah, I remember second grade. I had a bag that was this big, and my second grade teacher had probably 30 or 40 erasers, chewed up erasers inside of it. because I used to I used to just chew on pencils and chew on erasers, and I didn't realize it was something called self-stim. It's something we do with ADHD is we stimulate ourselves. We have to do some physical stimulation. So I started using gum whenever I could. I would chew on gum or these little toothpicks. I always keep toothpicks, and it's just something about having something to chew on or tapping your finger, something. So a lot of stuff I was soothing myself without even realizing what I was doing all the way back then.
Yeah, and I think that's think that's a really good way to look at it, because it's like a lot of times people with ADHD is stigmatized, like don't get involved with them, or they're not a good person. But it was kind of like the opposite of that. Like you broke all those stereotypical traits of what an ADHD student look like. And that's something that a lot of men probably don't even know. Like there's not a lot of high functioning, smart ADHD people in the world. You would think that they get bogged down by their debilitating ADHD, or is labeled as a stigma. But it's like it's something that is really wonderful to hear that you was able to kind of still thrive under all of the pressure that maybe you was under. Um, did you have a lot of friends back then, or did you feel like you had other people, that you had a support system towards that? Did you have other friends that maybe had a learning disability or something like that you can kind of lean on and talk to, or you just
Well,
just kind of managing it by yourself at that point?
I was managing it because you have to understand I didn't even know I had anything until
Okay.
3 years ago. So I didn't even know I was dealing with ADHD the whole time until I went to therapy and it was recommended. Another thing you have to factor in is I have OCPD, and OCPD is the counter is my counter. What do you call it? What is the kryptonite basically? My kryptonite for my ADHD, because the OCPD is extremely structured. It's workaholic. It's every fine detail. So both of those together, I think, is why I was able to kind of get to this point. And I'm not saying you can't if you don't have both, but I can't undercut the fact that I did have another disorder, which made me very strong on the other side
And break that
compared to
down. Like,
type A
what's
person.
the
Yeah.
what's the acronym for OCPD? Like, what was that?
Yes. So, and I want to make sure we have the delineation for anybody listening that you have OCD and then you have OCPD. They are completely different things, though, because I know a lot of times since they're so similar, we tend to
Yeah,
mix
I
them
got
up.
I got those two confused too. That's why I asked.
Yeah. So the OCPD is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So it's a personality disorder where a lot of times you won't even know you have it. But it is the marks of you only have to have four of the symptoms to qualify for it is rigidity. So extreme rigidity. Things have to go your way, essentially, an extreme dedication to rules. So it's somebody who follows all the rules and they want everybody else to follow the rules. People always link it to perfectionism. These are people who are, for the most part, always on time to things, never late. These are your workaholics. So I knew I had it because I worked on my wedding day. I worked on all my birthdays. I never took days off. And you have guilt anytime you take a day off. You have a hoarding tendency, but it's not hoarding like off the shows. For me, it's always hoarding things that I think I'll need. So hoarding a bunch of batteries, a bunch of cardboard, lotion bottles, whatever it might be. You just keep all these things. You have a difficulty with delegation. So if you have things that need to get done, you're the kid when it's a class project, you want to do all the work yourself. And you don't need anybody else to come in. You just want to do all the work
Yeah,
yourself.
maybe I had that too, and I didn't even know
Well, it's
that.
a lot of people. This is the thing. A lot of people, when I say it, they start to wonder, wait, those are a lot of the traits I had. And it makes sense because you would never think to go get checked out for this because it doesn't really cause issues in your professional life. You
Mhm.
typically are living a healthy life and you're actually doing well. Oh, frugality is another thing. People are extremely tight with money. You don't spend money on anything. But it is more of a relationship issue that I've noticed. So for me, it caused me issues when it came down to my marriage because I didn't want to spend money on anything. I didn't want my wife spending money on me for anything. In marriages, you're extremely critical. So you not only are you critical of yourself, you're very critical of your spouse. And it's really, really something that a lot of people might healthy traits, but you just turned up the volume way too much to the point where it's unhealthy. It's the spectrum of it. So that is why I think I've been able to make that work with my ADHD, because my structure, the discipline that comes with the OCPD, I forced it on the ADHD, and I still have struggled to get a lot of things done. So it isn't even perfect. But I want to answer the question about friends. Not knowing I had any disorders, I actually did have a friend who was in, I guess you would say, the special needs category. He did have the classes, and two
Yeah, so he
friends,
had
but
like
I
an
had a,
IEP basically. Basically.
yeah, he
Okay.
had a learning disorder, and we were all, that was one of my best friends. Two of my best friends had it, and we were in a small school, so it was only so many of us. So it's possible. I didn't even realize until you just asked me that question that I did actually have friends who were in those situations, but I never was, because my grades were always good. I always got straight A's, so I never really had an issue with. They never saw a learning disorder. It wasn't really that I had a inability to learn or difficulties learning. It was just the method of my learning wasn't the traditional sit in a room, listen to somebody talk. So when I got to college, I failed. In college, I failed my test when we just had lectures with no homework. But when you gave me the class where I had homework where I can apply it, I do well. So I'm a hands-on person. I have to get my hands on something to really understand it and really learn it.
Yeah, and that's actually good to hear. Now I want to kind of like switch the conversation to like more personal techniques that maybe people can use to kind of cope with ADHD. I know you said it was you had a pencil eraser and you would chew on it. That kind of helped you to keep going and be stimulated. But is there any other coping mechanisms that maybe young boys that might be dealing with it and it's really out of control that they can use to kind of cope with? Is there any strategies that you can kind of deal with it, or is it something that's completely unmanageable?
Yeah, now this is where I go more on the parents.
Hmm.
So leaning on the parents. My son, I have a 4-year old, and he has exhibited signs of everything I deal with. Right, so he's homeschooled, and with that being the case, my wife comes from an education background. She was a teacher for 10 years, especially his age, but none of her strategies work for him. The strategies she used to use in the classroom, they don't work for my son. So with me, I'm an adaptive learner and teacher. I'm able to identify how to teach my son, and that is why I put it on the parents, where you have to really know your child. You have to really try to figure out what is it that makes you tick. And one thing I always love to do as a helpful tip is relate the learning to something you love, because that just helps you get into it. So I always love pro wrestling. Always, anytime I'm learning how to do anything, when it was software engineering, game development, I always tried to make something wrestling related, because then I was interested in seeing it come to fruition. I had that, I could have more fun with it. And that just makes my brain move faster. I think with ADHD, it's like our brains, if I were to relate it to gears, if we're not interested in something, it's like you're having to use so much energy to try to pull one gear. But once you get interested in something, the gears just kind of move automatically, and then you can try to throw more stuff in the mix. So if you can figure out what you love to do and then try to tie that to whatever you're trying to learn, I think that'll help you big time. Another thing, and this is more advanced, but I'm guessing kids are going to get older, hopefully, and you'll want to have these strategies as you get older. You want to try to figure out how to break things down into MVPs, right? So minimum viable product. What is required to get something done? I always struggle with getting things finished to the finish line. If you can figure out just the MVPs of what is required to get something done, and then separate that from the things that are nice to have that will make it awesome, I think you'll get a lot more things done, and you'll start building your confidence. Because ADHD is a confidence killer if you don't know how to manage it. You start to have identity crisis and everything with ADHD, especially if it's undiagnosed. So if you can figure out how to get those MVPs, you'll be on a good track in life in general with all the things you need to do.
Yeah, and I think I would speak to that too as well as like I think learning coping mechanisms like meditation is kind of really helpful for that because it's kind of like it kind of places you in to a mode to where you can control your emotions better. I mean, given whatever outlet you have, if it's football and all that, you can definitely be rough and stuff like that and let loose there because that's what the name of the game is about. But If you're more in a reserve area where it's like you can't really do all that stuff because then you might be labeled as an ADHD person or a really not compliant person. You have to learn to kind of manage your emotions in a way that's like that you have this internal struggle that might be going on and you can't sit still, especially if you're in a college lecture room. You got to sit down. Like you can't just be up moving around because then the professor be like, "What you doing? Like this is really disruptive." And so I think one of the ways is like meditation because it kind of like calms your mind and gets you in a centralized location in your mind where you can like focus on whatever's going on in that moment, even if it's 20 or 30 minutes. So learning how to control the mind is like really powerful. So meditation was worked really well for my friend. Like I mentioned earlier, he had ADHD, so he had to really learn to kind of manage it better when he's in these settings where you can't get up and move around and stuff like that. And then exercise is definitely another one because it
Yeah.
releases all of those, toxins or build up energy where you can go and go ham and, do as many exercises you want. So those are two of the ways that I think can kind of help with ADHD. But there is like therapy too as well too to kind of teach you other coping mechanisms that you might not even know exists. I'm always a big advocate for therapy because what people don't know is I think there's different types of therapy. You have one for trauma, you have one for you know learning disabilities, and a lot of people don't even know that they have different centralized areas for different therapies that they can go to in the area or online, and most of them is covered by your insurance. Um, so now I want to switch the conversation over to like what made you wanted to get into helping other men. What was that like? What was your journey there? Like I know that you was going through a lot of stuff yourself and you wanted to get back this information to other men, but what started your journey really? Like take us back to that point. What
So it's
made something quick in your mind that I want to help other people, with this?
so I've always had it in me, even as a young child, where I've always assumed a mentorship role, as weird as it is. I remember being on the second or third grade basketball team, and our little team was up. We were up 6 points, and one of my teammates was celebrating. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna win!" And I remember having a conversation with him. Remember how small I am? And I said, "Let's not celebrate too soon. They could still come back. It doesn't really make sense." And they want them coming back, and we lost that game, and I was a little disappointed. But I used to have conversations like that, and then even my friends' mothers would always ask me. And I'm telling you, young, we're talking fourth, fifth grade. I'm having a conversation with my friend about disrespecting his mother. It's like, well, you don't talk to your mom like that, dude. Um, so and then my brothers, as we got older, I had to step into a fatherly role with my younger brothers, and I had a baby sister who's 14 years younger than me. So I've always had this role of mentorship in a way. So that, and then my family, I come from a family of hospitality where they've always owned adult foster care homes. So they deal with individuals who have schizophrenia and all of these different disorders. So I've been around that stuff my whole life. Like that was normalized to me. That wasn't anything foreign. So all of that, it was kind of embedded in me. But what happened is that I went to get therapy myself because I mentioned about me not wanting to spend any money. And I thought I just had OCD. But excuse me, 1 second, I talk too fast, and then I get hiccups. There we go. I thought I had OCD. I found out I had OCPD, and then while I was with my therapist, she said you have something called time blindness, where you think something's going to take this long, and it always takes this long, or much longer, or much shorter, and that's a telltale sign of people who have ADHD, is that time blindness consistently. So I said I never thought about ADHD and me having it, but I went home, watched all the videos, and I said I have every single sign of it. It makes so much sense. And I remember I was in the car crying tears of joy. It wasn't tears of sadness, it was tears of joy because I said at 20, I probably was 27 or 28, I finally understood so much more about myself. And it helped me look at my life differently. And I instantly started making changes. Like everything I could to try to make myself handle that problem solving, I did. So I went to my therapist. I went back and I told her about a conversation I had with my family members who are still in Michigan. And I said, I had probably 5 or 6 conversations with people, hour long conversations where I was helping them through different issues and helping them through conversations that they could not have with each other for some reason. But when I got there, we were able to do it. And she said she thought I would be a great fit for the mental health field. She was serious about it. But I'm a full-time software engineer. For me to leave my job where I'm in a great career to switch over, go back to school and do something else didn't make sense. And that's when coaching was brought up. And I started thinking, okay, if I did coaching, how would that look? And then I realized that there was no OCPD coach who really helped people with OCPD traits. And that's where the OCPD coach came from. And ever since then, that's what I've been rolling with.
And are you like currently accepting clients if people want to reach out to you?
Yeah,
brands
if they are,
too.
yeah, if they're in need and they really are needing that one-on-one support, I do have clients. What I would recommend is my Patreon though, because my Patreon, it gives you more access and it's cheaper. It's much cheaper. So you get the monthly payment and you get all these different resources. I'm live streaming every single week. So that's always a chance where you can jump in and ask questions for free. I have people where I answer questions, no problem. One of the big things about if you're my client though, I help you get set up on Jira, which is what big companies use to manage big projects. And I use it to manage my life because my life is just as big. And your life should be just as big for yourself as well. So I hope you get set up on Jira. I'll set your Jira board up for you. I'll track it with you. And I show people, you'd be surprised how many people tell me they didn't realize how much stuff they actually get done because they've been so hard on themselves because we just think daily, I didn't get enough done today. I didn't get enough done today. But when I show you how much you get done in a week and then in a month, it blows people's minds and then their confidence starts to increase. So if you are interested in working with me, Patreon, the YouTube, the OCPD coach, reach out to me on there. But Patreon is the best route to go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have today for you today, Shannon. I do thank you for coming on. And if you have any other brothers that will want to come on the show, send them my way because I'm always looking for guests. And if you ever want to come back on the show and meet my other co-hosts, next year or sometime, whenever, you're more than welcome to ever come back on. If you ever have an event you want to promote on here, helping other people, I'm all about, spreading that positivity, love and showing my brothers that we are a community and we're stronger together than just to think that, we have to struggle alone when there's so much help. These podcasts, as you coaching, me and there's so much help in the world that a lot of people probably don't even know because they're so stuck in their own bubble that I'm the only one going through this. No, you're not the only one going through this. It's a lot of men going through the same thing you're going through, but unless you reach out and get help, you won't know that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I will send you the link for this episode when it comes out. And if you ever want to come back on, just let me know. But other than that, I'm going to end it here. And please do subscribe, and I will subscribe to your channel as well. Or if you have any other businesses that you want me to subscribe to, I'm more than welcome to do that as well too. But you can reach out via email if you want to, send me those links as well too. So.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Hope you fight for your life, and thank you for having me on here.
All right, have a good day, Sean. Bye.
All right, peace.